Tiny moments at the end of the day when you can look yourself in the mirror and really know that you did what you said you would do. Not perfectly, not spectacularly, but consistently, even when it hurt, even when you didn't feel like it, even when the entire universe seemed to be conspiring against you. There's this ancient practice that sounds almost stupidly simple, but it holds more power than 1,000 motivational speeches. Before you go to sleep tonight, I want you to make 3 promises to yourself. Not 10, not a massive list of everything you wish you could accomplish. Just 3 specific things you will do tomorrow, no matter what happens. It could be as simple as drinking water first thing in the morning, going for a 10-minute walk, spending 5 minutes in silence before you check your phone. The specific promises don't matter nearly as much as this one thing: you keep them. Whatever happens tomorrow, chaos or calm, inspired or exhausted, you keep those 3 promises to yourself. Because here's what happens when you start keeping promises to yourself. Your brain starts to believe you again. Your confidence stops being this abstract thing you're trying to fake until you make it, and starts being this solid foundation you're building brick by brick, promise by promise, day by day. The people around you might not notice at first, but you will. You'll feel it. That shift from "I hope I can" to "I know I will." That's not arrogance, that's self-respect. And self-respect is the bedrock of everything you're trying to build. But let's get real for a second. I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking about all the times you've tried before, all the times you've made promises to yourself and broken them, all the times you've started strong on Monday and given up by Wednesday. And there's this voice in your head right now telling you that this time won't be any different, that you're just going to fail again, so why even bother trying? That voice, that's not wisdom. That's not your intuition protecting you from disappointment. That's fear. And fear is a liar. Fear wants you to believe that your past defines your future. But the Stoics taught something revolutionary. They taught that every single moment is a chance to choose differently. Your past isn't a prison. It's information, data, evidence of what doesn't work. And the only way you lose is if you stop using that information to adjust, adapt, and try again. You want to know what separates people who become unstoppable from people who stay stuck? It's not talent. It's not connections. It's not even opportunity. It's this one thing: unstoppable people have learned to control their response to adversity. Not eliminate adversity, that's impossible. Not avoid adversity, that's cowardice. Control their response to it. And it starts with the smallest, most underrated practice in the world: learning to let your mind move faster than your mouth. Think about it. How many times have you said something in anger and frustration, in that split second when someone pushed your buttons, and then spent the next hour, the next day, the next week regretting it? How many relationships have you damaged? How many opportunities have you lost? How many versions of yourself have you betrayed because your tongue moved faster than your brain and you blurted out words that you can never take back? This isn't about being fake. This isn't about swallowing your truth or walking on eggshells around people. This is about power, real power, the power to choose your response instead of being a slave to your reactions. The Stoics called this the discipline of assent, the practice of examining your first reaction before you act on it. That flash of anger, examine it. That urge to defend yourself, examine it. That impulse to lash out, shut down, run away, examine it. And in that tiny space between stimulus and response, that's where your freedom lives. That's where you reclaim your power. And here's something that might sound strange at first, but trust me on this. If you really want to develop the kind of focus, the kind of emotional control, the kind of mind-body connection that makes you unstoppable, learn to play an instrument. A guitar, a flute, a piano, something that requires your full attention, your full presence, your full coordination between what your brain is thinking and what your hands are doing. Because here's what happens when you learn to make music. You learn to be still in the chaos. You learn that mastery isn't about doing things perfectly. It's about showing up consistently and letting the practice shape you. You learn that the same fingers that fumble and mess up on Tuesday can create something beautiful on Thursday if you just keep showing up. And most importantly, you learn something that will change everything about how you approach building habits. You learn that you can't force progress, but you can't skip it either. Every single note, every single practice session, every single moment of frustration and breakthrough, it's all building towards something. You're not just learning an instrument, you're learning patience, focus, discipline, the ability to sit with discomfort and transform it into art. But let me tell you where real transformation happens. It happens in solitude. And I'm not talking about loneliness. I'm talking about intentional time alone with yourself, with your thoughts, with your life. 1 hour a day where you're not consuming content, not scrolling, not filling the silence with noise, just you, present, aware, thinking. You know when the best ideas in history were born? When the greatest solutions to impossible problems were discovered? In moments of solitude? When someone disconnected from the chaos long enough to hear themselves think, your life right now, all the problems you're facing, all the goals you're chasing, all the confusion about what to do next, the answers are already inside you. But you can't hear them over the noise. You can't access them when you're constantly reacting to notifications, messages, other people's emergencies, other people's opinions, other people's version of who you should be. So you carve out time. 1 hour. Hell, start with 20 minutes. Time where you're just sitting with yourself, walking without headphones, thinking without distraction. And at first, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Your mind is going to race. You're going to want to reach for your phone. But if you can just sit with that discomfort, if you can just be present with yourself, ideas will come, clarity will come, solutions you've been searching for everywhere else will rise up from somewhere deep inside you that you didn't even know existed. And here's the habit that ties everything together. The one that separates people who change their lives from people who just think about changing their lives at the end of every day. For just 10 minutes, you analyze everything. You sit down with a notebook and you examine your day like a scientist examining data. Where did your time go? Where did your energy leak? What worked? What didn't? What do you need to remove from your life? What do you need to add? What promises did you keep? What promises did you break? Why? Most people are living in a fog. They're letting life happen to them, reacting to whatever comes their way, never stopping to ask if this is actually the life they want to be living. But when you analyze your days, when you study your own patterns and choices and results, you're taking back control. You're saying, I'm not living unconsciously anymore. I'm not sleepwalking through my one shot at this life. I'm awake. I'm aware. I'm adjusting. I'm improving. And this is where it gets interesting. Because when you start keeping promises to yourself, when you start controlling your words, instead of letting them control you, when you develop focus through practice, when you spend time in solitude, letting ideas emerge, when you analyze your days and adjust your approach, something shifts. You stop being someone who hopes things will get better. You become someone who makes things better. You stop being a victim of circumstances. You become the force that shapes circumstances. But I need to tell you something that's going to sound harsh, maybe even cruel. Everything I just shared with you, it means absolutely nothing if you don't wake up tomorrow and do it. Not think about it, not plan it, not wait until you feel ready or inspired or motivated. Do it, scared, tired, doubtful. Do it anyway. And this is where most people lose. They hear truth, they feel it resonate somewhere deep inside them. They get excited about change, and then they wake up tomorrow at 8 in the morning, already behind, already stressed, already reacting instead of creating. They hit snooze on their alarm and on their life. They tell themselves they'll start Monday, they'll start next month, they'll start when things calm down. But here's what the Stoics understood, that you need to understand right now. Things never calm down. Life doesn't pause and wait for you to get your act together. The only calm you're ever gonna find is the calm you create inside yourself in the middle of the storm. And that starts at 5 in the morning, 5 a.m., 2 words that sound like punishment to most people. But to the people who actually do it, who actually drag themselves out of bed when it's still dark, when their body is screaming for more sleep, when every logical reason to stay in bed is louder than the one quiet reason to get up, to those people, 5 a.m. is freedom. Because while the world is still sleeping, while chaos hasn't started yet, while notifications haven't started flooding in, and people haven't started demanding pieces of you, you get to be you. Present, intentional, in control of your first thoughts, your first actions, your first decisions of the day. You're not reacting to someone else's emergency. You're creating your life deliberately, consciously, powerfully. But let me be honest with you, because I respect you too much to sugarcoat this. The first week is hell. Your body rebels, your mind rebels, everything in you screams that this is unnatural, uncomfortable, unnecessary. You'll hate it. You'll want to quit. You'll tell yourself that sleep is more important than some romantic idea of waking up early. And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe 5 a.m. isn't your magic number. Maybe it's 6. Maybe it's 4:30. The time doesn't matter nearly as much as this one thing. Are you waking up before the world demands something from you? Or are you waking up already behind, already in reactive mode, already letting life happen to you instead of happening to life? When you open your eyes before you check your phone, before you scroll through everything you missed while you were sleeping, before you let the world tell you who you need to be today, drink water. 1 glass, room temperature, or with lemon. Your body has been repairing itself all night, and it's dehydrated. This isn't some health guru nonsense. This is basic biology. Your brain is 73% water. Your muscles are 79% water. Every chemical reaction in your body needs water to function. So you wake up, and before you do anything else, you hydrate. You tell your body, we're alive, we're in control, we're starting this day with intention. And then you move. Not a full workout, not some Instagram perfect routine, just movement. 10 minutes of yoga, a walk outside, stretches on your living room floor, something that tells your body it's time to wake up, time to produce energy instead of melatonin, time to flood your system with dopamine and serotonin and all those chemicals that make you feel alive instead of just existing. And if you can get outside even for 5 minutes, even if it's cold, even if it's uncomfortable, do it. Natural light in the morning is like hitting a reset button on your brain. It tells your circadian rhythm it's daytime, stops the production of sleep hormones, starts the production of energy hormones. This isn't woo-woo, this is science. This is your biology working for you instead of against you. But here's where most people go wrong with morning routines. They try to do too much. They see some influencer's perfect morning routine and think they need to meditate for an hour, journal for 30 minutes, work out for 45 minutes, read for an hour, and prep a gourmet breakfast. And then they try it for 1 day, feel overwhelmed, and never do it again. Start small, impossibly small. 5 minutes of sitting in silence, just breathing, no fancy meditation app, no guided anything, just you, present, aware, not doing anything except existing. And at first your mind is gonna race. You're gonna think about your to-do list, your problems, that conversation you need to have, that deadline you're worried about. Let it all come. Don't fight it. Don't judge it. Just observe it. Watch your thoughts like you're watching clouds pass by. And in that tiny space of observation, something incredible happens. You realize you are not your thoughts. You are the one watching your thoughts. And that distance, that tiny bit of space between you and your racing mind, that's freedom. That's power. That's the beginning of control. Then you write 3 things. What are you grateful for? How do you feel right now? What's the one thing that would make today a win? Not 10 things, not a massive list. 3 things, specific, honest, real. Because here's what journaling does, that nothing else can. It forces you to examine your life instead of just living it on autopilot. It makes you the observer of your own story instead of just a character reacting to the plot. And after you've moved your body, calmed your mind, examined your internal state, you feed your soul. You read, not the news, not social media, not emails, something that makes you better. A biography of someone who overcame impossible odds. A philosophy book that challenges how you think. A self-help book that gives you tools you can actually use. Even just a few pages, even just one chapter, even just one idea that shifts your perspective. Well, maybe reading isn't your thing. Maybe it's learning a new language on Duolingo. Maybe it's watching a tutorial on something you want to master. Maybe it's practicing that instrument we talked about. The specific activity doesn't matter. What matters is that you're investing in yourself before the world asks you to invest in everything else. But now comes the part that separates the dreamers from the doers: preparation. You look at your day, not to get overwhelmed, not to stress about everything you have to do, but to prioritize. What's the one thing that absolutely has to happen today? What can wait? What can you delegate? What can you eliminate entirely? And you don't just think about it, you write it down, clear, specific, actionable, and then you do something that feels almost ridiculous, but works in ways you can't even imagine. You close your eyes for 30 seconds, and you visualize yourself crushing the day, walking into that difficult meeting with confidence, staying calm when chaos erupts, creating instead of consuming. You see yourself in vivid detail, being the person you're trying to become, not someday, today. Your brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you visualize success, you're literally programming your subconscious mind to look for opportunities to make that vision real. You're priming your nervous system to respond calmly instead of reactively. You're setting your mind on success autopilot. But let's pause here for a second, because I need you to understand something crucial. Everything I just told you about morning routines and visualization and all these practices, they mean nothing if you don't understand the one thing that kills more dreams than fear, more potential than laziness, more futures than failure: inconsistency. You're gonna wake up tomorrow at 5 a.m. and you're gonna feel like a warrior. Day one, you're motivated. You drink your water, you move your body, you sit in silence, you journal, you read, you feel unstoppable. Day two, still pretty good. You're sore, you're tired, but you do it. Day three, this is where it gets real. Day three is when your body realizes this isn't just some cute experiment. This is war. And it fights back. Your alarm goes off at 5, and your body says no, not today. You're tired. You worked hard yesterday. You deserve rest. And this is the moment, right here, right now, at 5 in the morning. On day 3, when nobody's watching and nobody will know if you quit, this is where unstoppable people are born. Not in the moments of inspiration, in the moments of resistance. Because here's what the Stoics knew, that modern culture has forgotten: discipline isn't about motivation. Discipline is what you do when motivation has abandoned you completely. Discipline is keeping your promise to yourself when every fiber of your being is begging you to break it. Discipline is doing the thing you said you would do, not because you feel like it, not because it's easy, not because you're inspired, but because you said you would. And your word, even to yourself, especially to yourself, is everything. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the world, the emperor of Rome, wrote this in his private journals. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of? If I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do. Think about that. The emperor of Rome, a man who could have stayed in bed as long as he wanted, who had servants and comfort and every excuse in the world to take it easy, he understood that getting up when it's hard is what makes you human, not getting up when it's convenient, getting up when it's brutal, when it's dark, when you're exhausted, when you'd rather die than face another day. And you might be thinking, that's easy for him to say. He was the emperor. But that's exactly the point. He had every reason not to need discipline, and yet he chose it anyway, because he understood something profound. External comfort makes you soft. Internal discipline makes you unstoppable. So you get up, day 3, day 5, and somewhere around day 7, something starts to shift. It's not easier yet. Don't lie to yourself, it's still hard, but it's a different kind of hard. It's not the hard of wondering if you can do it. It's the hard of knowing you will do it, no matter what your body says. Your brain starts to rewire, neural pathways start to form. The action that felt impossible last week starts to feel inevitable this week. But let me tell you what nobody talks about. The people around you are gonna try to pull you back. Not because they're evil, not because they hate you, but because your change makes them uncomfortable. Your discipline is a mirror showing them their own lack of it. Your 5 a.m. wakes make their 8 a.m. snoozes feel like failures. Your kept promises make their broken ones sting more. They'll say things like, "You're taking this too seriously. You need to relax. One day won't hurt. You're becoming obsessed." And here's where your control of words becomes everything. Because your first instinct is going to be to defend yourself, to explain, to justify. But you don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing to be better. You don't need to convince anyone that your discipline is worth it. Remember what we talked about, your tongue moving slower than your brain? This is where you practice it. When someone questions your commitment, you pause, you breathe, you examine what they're really asking. Usually they're not asking you to justify yourself. They're asking you to give them permission to stay the same. And you can't give them that permission. Not because you're better than them, but because you're busy building something they can't see yet. So you smile, you nod, you say something simple like, "This works for me," or "I'm just trying something new," and you move on. Because here's the thing about unstoppable people. They don't waste energy defending their choices. They invest energy executing them. And speaking of execution, let's talk about what happens after those first 2 weeks. Because right now, you might be thinking this is all about mornings. Wake up early, follow a routine, feel good about yourself. But that's not what this is about. The morning is just the training ground. The real war happens in the moments when life punches you in the face and everything falls apart. Your car breaks down. You lose your job. Someone you love hurts you. The project you've been working on for months collapses. The investment you made fails. The relationship you thought was solid crumbles. And in that moment, when chaos is screaming at you from every direction, when every reasonable person would understand if you just gave up, this is when your morning practice pays off. Because you've been training every single morning at 5 a.m. when you didn't want to get up but did anyway. You were training for this moment. Every time you sat in silence when your mind was racing, you were training for this moment. Every time you examined your day instead of just surviving it, you were training for this moment. Every promise you kept to yourself when nobody was watching, you were building the foundation that refuses to crack when the weight gets unbearable. This is what the Stoics meant by adversity being the forge. You don't wait for life to get easier. You make yourself stronger. You don't pray for lighter burdens. You build broader shoulders. And you do it in the mundane moments, the boring moments, the moments when nothing dramatic is happening, but you're showing up anyway. Because discipline isn't glamorous. Discipline is showing up on Tuesday when nobody's cheering, nobody's watching, nobody cares, and doing the work anyway. But here's where most people misunderstand stoicism, misunderstand discipline, misunderstand this whole concept of becoming unstoppable. They think it means becoming emotionless, cold, robotic, like you are supposed to stop feeling pain or fear or doubt. That's not stoicism, that's suppression. And suppression doesn't make you strong, it makes you brittle. Real strength is feeling everything, the fear, the doubt, the pain, the anger, the frustration, feeling all of it with full intensity, and then choosing your response anyway. It's not I don't feel this, it's I feel this and I'm doing it anyway. That's courage. That's discipline. That's the difference between someone who breaks under pressure and someone who uses pressure to become diamond. And this is where that daily analysis practice becomes absolutely critical. Every night, 10 minutes, you sit down with your notebook and you examine what happened. Not to beat yourself up, not to judge yourself, but to learn. Where did you react instead of respond today? What triggered you? What patterns are you starting to notice? Where did you waste time? Where did you invest it? What did you learn? What will you do differently tomorrow? Some days you'll write about victories, days when you kept your cool, when someone tried to provoke you, days when you stayed focused, when 1,000 distractions called your name, days when you chose to create instead of consume. Those entries feel good. They remind you that you're making progress, that this is working, that you're becoming someone different. But other days you'll write about failure, days when you snapped at someone you love, days when you scrolled for an hour instead of working on your dream, days when you made promises to yourself in the morning and broke them by afternoon. And this is where most people quit the analysis practice, because they think it's making them feel worse. But here's what they're missing. Awareness is the first step to change. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. You can't improve what you won't examine. Every failure you write down, every mistake you analyze, every pattern you identify, that's not evidence of weakness, that's data. Information, intelligence you're gathering about your own operating system so you can upgrade it. And here's something that will sound counterintuitive, but trust me on this. The days when you fail, when you break promises to yourself, when you fall short, those are actually more valuable than the days when everything goes right. Because the days when everything goes right don't teach you anything new. They just confirm what you already know. But the days when you fail, those days show you exactly where your blind spots are, exactly where you need to focus, exactly what you need to work on next. So you write it down, not with shame, not with self-hatred, but with curiosity. Like a scientist studying an experiment. Interesting, when I didn't get enough sleep, I was more reactive. When I skipped my morning silence, I was more anxious. When I didn't plan my day, I wasted 3 hours on things that didn't matter. Data, just data. And data is power. Now let's talk about that hour of solitude we mentioned earlier, because this is where the real magic happens, and most people completely miss it. You carve out 60 minutes where you're disconnected from everything. No phone, no music, no podcast, no audiobook, just you and your thoughts. And at first it's torture. Your mind races, you feel anxious, you feel like you're wasting time. You keep wanting to reach for your phone, check something, do something, anything but sit with yourself. But if you push through that discomfort, if you just sit with it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, eventually something shifts. The racing thoughts start to slow down. The anxiety starts to fade. And in that space, in that quiet, solutions start to emerge. Not forced solutions, not solutions you're actively trying to think of, but solutions that rise up from somewhere deeper, somewhere you can't access when you're constantly consuming input. This is where you figure out what you really want. This is where you realize which relationships are draining you and which ones are feeding you. This is where you see the patterns in your behavior that have been holding you back for years. This is where the answers to questions you've been asking for months suddenly become obvious. Not because someone told you, not because you read it in a book, but because you gave yourself space to know. And I need you to understand something about this practice. It's not passive. Sitting in silence isn't meditation. It's not spiritual. It's strategic. You're not trying to empty your mind. You're trying to hear it. You're trying to access the part of your brain that knows what you need to do but can't speak over the constant noise of notifications and opinions and other people's emergencies. Some days in that hour you'll walk, no destination, no headphones, just walking and thinking. Other days you'll sit on your floor and stare at a wall. Other days you'll lie in your bed before everyone wakes up and just exist. The activity doesn't matter. The silence does. The disconnection does. The space to think without interruption does. And here's what starts happening after a few weeks of this practice. You stop being so desperate for other people's approval. You stop checking your phone every 5 minutes to see if someone liked your post, responded to your message, validated your existence. Because you've been spending time with yourself and you're starting to like that person. You're starting to trust that person. you're starting to realize that person is enough. That's when the real shift happens. That's when you stop living reactively, chasing everyone else's definition of success, trying to be who they think you should be. And you start living intentionally, building the life that makes sense to you, becoming who you know you're meant to be. But none of this, absolutely none of this works if you don't have your foundation right. And your foundation is sleep. Real sleep, 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. Not 5 hours while telling yourself you're grinding. Not 6 hours while you scroll on your phone for 2 hours before bed. 7 to 8 hours of your body actually recovering, repairing, consolidating memories, processing emotions. You want to know why you can't focus, why you're anxious all the time, why you can't control your emotions, why you make stupid decisions? Look at your sleep. If you're trying to build discipline on 5 hours of sleep, you're building a house on quicksand. It's going to collapse, not might, will. So you work backward from 5 a.m. If you need to wake at 5, you need to be in bed by 9. Not scrolling in bed, not watching TV in bed, asleep, which means you need to start winding down by 8, which means you need to finish your day analysis by 7:30, which means your entire evening needs to be designed to prepare you for the morning that's coming. And this is where people fail. They think morning routines are about mornings, but morning routines are built the night before. You lay out your workout clothes, you prep your water bottle, you set up your space, you remove every possible friction point between waking up and executing. Because at 5 a.m., your willpower is weak. Your discipline is fragile. You need systems, not motivation. You need automation, not inspiration. But let's get into the deeper strategy here. Because everything we've talked about so far, the promises, the analysis, the solitude, the sleep, these are tools. And tools are useless if you don't understand what you're building with them. So let me ask you a question that cuts to the heart of everything. What are you optimizing your life for? Most people never answer this question. They just do what they're supposed to do. Go to school, get a job, make money, buy things, impress people, check boxes, follow the script, and then they wonder why they feel empty, why success doesn't satisfy them, why achievement doesn't fulfill them, because they've been building someone else's vision of success and they're just now realizing it doesn't fit. So in that hour of solitude, in those morning journals, in those evening analysis sessions, you need to answer this question. What are you actually trying to build? Not what should you be building, not what would impress people. What do you actually want your life to look like 3 years from now, 5 years from now, at the end? And be honest, brutally honest, because this is your one shot. And once you have that clarity, once you know what you're actually optimizing for, everything changes. Your decisions get easier. Your priorities get clearer. Your energy gets focused because you're not trying to do everything. You're trying to do the few things that actually matter to your specific vision of a life well lived. This is where that morning planning session becomes crucial. You're not just looking at your calendar. You're asking, does this task, this meeting, this commitment move me closer to what I'm building? If yes, you do it with full presence. If no, you eliminate it, delegate it, or do it as efficiently as possible so you can get back to what matters. And this is going to require something that most people are terrified of, saying no. No to opportunities that don't align. No to people who drain you. No to obligations that steal time from your priorities. No to the version of success that society is trying to sell you. And yes, it's going to make people uncomfortable. Yes, some people are going to judge you. Yes, you're going to disappoint people who are used to you saying yes to everything. But here's what's more terrifying than disappointing other people: getting to the end of your life and realizing you disappointed yourself, realizing you spent decades building what other people wanted instead of what you needed, realizing you were so busy being who they thought you should be that you never became who you were meant to be. So you say no, and at first it feels selfish, it feels wrong, but then something happens. The people who matter, the people who actually care about you and not just what you can do for them, they respect it. They respect your boundaries. They respect your focus, and the people who don't respect it, the people who get angry when you prioritize yourself, they show you exactly who they were all along. And this brings us back to that practice of controlling your words, letting your mind move faster than your mouth. Because every time someone asks you to do something, your first instinct is going to be to say yes, to be nice, to be helpful, to avoid conflict. But that instant yes is killing you. It's filling your life with other people's priorities and leaving no room for your own. So you pause, you examine, you ask yourself, does this serve what I'm building? And if the answer is no, you respond calmly, clearly, respectfully, but you respond with no. And you don't over-explain. You don't apologize for having priorities. You don't defend your decision to choose yourself. You just say no and move on. And here's what's fascinating. When you start living this way, when you start keeping promises to yourself, controlling your responses, spending time in solitude, analyzing your days, saying no to what doesn't serve you, other people start noticing. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because you carry yourself differently. You walk into rooms with a different energy. You speak with a different certainty. You exist with a different presence. This is what Seneca called living in accordance with nature, not pretending to be something you're not, but becoming fully what you are, not performing strength, but embodying it, not faking confidence, but building it so solidly that nothing can shake it. But let me tell you what this journey actually looks like, because all these practices sound clean and perfect in theory, but reality is messy. There's going to be a Tuesday when you wake up at 5 and sit down to journal, and your mind goes completely blank. There's going to be a Thursday when you try to meditate and all you can think about is your to-do list. There's going to be a weekend when you skip your morning routine because you stayed up late and you're tired and you convince yourself you deserve a break. And here's the test. What do you do on Monday? Do you spiral into guilt and self-hatred and use that one skip day as evidence that you're a failure who can't commit to anything? Or do you acknowledge it, learn from it, and start again? Because consistency isn't perfection. Consistency is showing up again after you miss a day. It's keeping the promise to yourself after you've broken it. It's choosing the practice after you've abandoned it. The Stoics had this concept they call the morning meditation. Every morning, they would remind themselves that they were going to encounter difficult people, frustrating situations, unexpected obstacles, not if, when, and they would prepare mentally for how they would respond, not react, respond with patience, with wisdom, with control. So in your morning visualization, after you've planned your day, after you've identified your one priority, you imagine the obstacles. You see the person who's going to try to provoke you. You see the distraction that's going to call your name. You see the moment when you're going to want to quit, and you decide right then, in the calm of the morning, how you're going to handle it. So when it happens, and it will happen, you're not surprised, you're prepared. This is the shift from hoping things go well to knowing you'll handle whatever comes. This is the shift from praying for an easy path to preparing for a hard one. This is the shift from wanting to be unstoppable to actually becoming it. And it all comes back to those 3 promises. 3 specific commitments you make to yourself every single night. Not vague wishes, not I'll try to work out or I'll try to be productive. Specific promises. Tomorrow I will drink water before touching my phone. Tomorrow I will sit in silence for 10 minutes. Tomorrow I will write in my journal 3 things, non-negotiable. And then you keep them, no matter what. Because every single time you keep a promise to yourself, you're sending a signal to your subconscious, I'm someone who does what they say, I'm someone who can be trusted, I'm someone who follows through. And every time you break a promise to yourself, even a small one, you're sending the opposite signal, my word doesn't mean anything, I can't be trusted, I don't follow through. And your brain is always listening, always watching, always learning who you are based on what you do, not what you say. So you teach it, promise by promise, day by day, that you are someone who keeps their word, that you are someone who can be counted on, That you are someone who, when life gets hard, doesn't break. That you are someone who, when life gets hard, doesn't break. You bend, you adapt, you evolve, but you don't break. And then something happens that you didn't see coming. Around week 3, maybe week 4, you wake up one morning and it hits you. You're not the same person who started this journey. Something fundamental has shifted. You walk differently, you talk differently, you think differently. The problems that used to consume you for days now get processed in hours. The people who used to trigger you now barely register. The chaos that used to derail you now just becomes noise in the background, while you stay focused on what matters. And it's not because your problems got smaller. They didn't. If anything, they got bigger, more complex, more demanding, but you got stronger, more capable, more resilient. You developed this unshakable foundation that no external circumstance can crack, because you built it yourself, brick by brick, promise by promise, morning by morning, when nobody was watching and nobody would have known if you quit. Let me tell you what this looks like in real time. You're in a meeting and someone tries to provoke you, challenge you, make you react emotionally. And there's this split second where the old you would have snapped back, defended yourself, gotten pulled into their drama. But the new you feel the trigger, you recognize it, you watch it like a wave approaching shore. And instead of getting swept away by it, you let it pass. You pause, you breathe, and you respond with such calm clarity that the person trying to provoke you doesn't know what to do with it. They were expecting a fight, they got wisdom. They were expecting reaction, they got response. That's not you pretending to be calm. That's not you suppressing your anger. That's you actually being in control. That's months of morning silence, teaching you that you are not your emotions. You are the one observing your emotions. That's weeks of nightly analysis, teaching you to recognize your patterns. That's hundreds of kept promises, teaching you that your word, your discipline, your commitment, these things are more powerful than any temporary feeling. And people notice. They don't say anything at first because they're not sure what changed, but they feel it. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you handle pressure. There's this presence about you now that wasn't there before. It's not arrogance, it's not ego, it's confidence rooted in competence. It's the quiet certainty that comes from knowing you can trust yourself because you've proven it to yourself every single day. Your colleague who used to always have drama, always had an emergency, always needed you to fix their problems, they stopped coming to you, not because you rejected them, but because your energy changed. You're no longer operating from a place of reactive chaos. You're operating from a place of intentional calm. And people who thrive on chaos can't exist in that space. They need someone to match their frequency. And you're not doing that anymore. Your friend who used to always talk about their big dreams, but never took action, they start asking you what you're doing differently. They see you working on that project you've been talking about for years. They see you actually making progress. They see you showing up consistently, and it makes them uncomfortable because your action is highlighting their inaction. Some of them will rise up and join you, others will fall away, and you have to let them. Because here's what nobody tells you about transformation. It's lonely at first. When you commit to becoming unstoppable, when you commit to living with discipline and intention and purpose, you're gonna leave people behind. Not because you're trying to, not because you think you're better than them, but because you're moving in a direction they're not willing to go. And that's okay. That's necessary. That's part of the process. But then something beautiful happens. You start attracting different people. People who are also committed to growth, people who keep their promises, people who control their words, people who spend time in solitude thinking deeply about their lives, people who analyze their days and adjust their approach, people who understand that discipline isn't punishment, it's freedom. And suddenly you're not lonely anymore. You're surrounded by people who challenge you, inspire you, push you to be better. And your life starts to look completely different. Remember those 3 promises you've been keeping every night. Those small, simple commitments that felt almost insignificant at first. They've compounded. You've kept 90 promises to yourself, 300 promises, 1,000 promises, and each one built on the last one. Each one strengthened your foundation. Each one proved to your subconscious that you are someone who does what they say. And now when you set a big goal, when you commit to something challenging, there's no doubt in your mind that you'll achieve it. Not because it's easy, not because you're special, but because you have evidence, irrefutable evidence, months and months of data showing that when you commit to something, you follow through. Your track record doesn't lie. Your history of kept promises doesn't lie. You are literally becoming unstoppable because you've proven to yourself over and over again that you don't quit. Let me show you what this actually creates in your life. That project you've been thinking about for 3 years but never started because you weren't sure you could finish it. You start it week 1 and you work on it every single day. Not when you feel inspired, not when you have time, every single day. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever you committed to in your 3 promises the night before. And by month 2, you've made more progress on that project than you made in 3 years of thinking about it. That conversation you've been avoiding for 6 months because it's uncomfortable, you have it. You prepare mentally in your morning visualization. You control your words, letting your brain move faster than your tongue. You say what needs to be said with clarity and compassion. And afterward, you analyze it in your evening journal. What went well? What could you improve? What did you learn? Data? Just data? And you get better. That habit you've been trying to break for years, the one that's been sabotaging you, keeping you stuck, you break it. Not through willpower alone, but through replacement, through analysis, through understanding what triggers it and what it's really giving you. And then you design your environment, your schedule, your promises to yourself in a way that makes the old habit nearly impossible and the new habit nearly automatic. And here's where it gets really interesting. Around month 3, maybe month 4, you start achieving things that used to feel impossible. Not because you suddenly got smarter or more talented or more capable, but because you removed all the friction between intention and execution. You're not waiting to feel motivated. You're not waiting for the perfect time. You're not waiting for someone to give you permission. You decided what you're building, you committed to the process, and you're executing daily. That's it. That's the formula. And people start calling you disciplined. They start calling you driven. They start asking for your secret. And you want to tell them, there's no secret. I just keep promises to myself. I just control my responses. I just spend time thinking. I just analyze my days. I just show up consistently. But you know, they're not really asking for the formula. They're asking for the shortcut. They want the results without the process. They want the transformation without the discipline. And you can't give them that because it doesn't exist. But for the ones who actually want to change, for the ones who are ready to do the work, you become a beacon. Not because you're preaching at them, not because you're telling them what to do, but because you're living proof that transformation is possible, that consistency compounds, that discipline creates freedom, that promises kept create power, and your confidence isn't the fake kind anymore. It's not the fake it till you make it energy. It's the real thing. The kind that comes from knowing, truly knowing, that whatever challenge comes your way, you can handle it. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because you've developed the mental tools, the emotional resilience, the strategic thinking to navigate anything. You've sat with discomfort so many times in your morning silence that discomfort doesn't scare you anymore. You've analyzed so many failures in your evening journal that failure is just information now, not identity. Remember that hour of solitude we talked about? The time when you disconnect from everything and just think? By month 6, that hour has generated more clarity, more ideas, more solutions than the previous 6 years combined. Because you're not just consuming everyone else's thoughts anymore. You're creating your own. You're connecting dots that nobody else sees. You're solving problems from angles nobody else considers. Because you gave yourself the space to think deeply. And deep thinking is where all breakthrough happens. That goal you set 3 months ago, you achieved it. That next goal, you're halfway there. That impossible dream you whispered about at 2 in the morning when you were at rock bottom, it's not impossible anymore. It's not even a dream. It's a plan, with steps, with timelines, with daily actions, and you're executing it day after day after day, and it's working. But here's what's even more powerful than achieving your goals. You're becoming someone who doesn't need external validation anymore. You used to check your phone constantly, desperate for likes, comments, messages, anything to prove you mattered. But now, your phone sits untouched during your morning routine. You go hours without checking it. Not because you're trying to prove something, but because you've developed something more valuable than external validation, internal certainty. You know who you are now. You know what you're capable of. You know where you're going. And that knowing isn't based on what other people think or say or believe about you. It's based on what you've proven to yourself in the quiet moments, when nobody's watching. In the early mornings when you kept your promises. In the difficult conversations when you controlled your words. In the solitary hours when you thought deeply. In the evening analyses when you learned from your mistakes. That's where real confidence comes from. That's where unshakable self-respect is built, and your life starts to feel different in ways you didn't expect. You wake up, and there's no dread, no anxiety about facing the day, because you've been visualizing this day every morning. You've been preparing for obstacles. You've been deciding how you'll respond before situations even arise. So when challenges come, and they always come, you're not caught off guard. You're not reactive. You're strategic, you're calm, you're in control. The people who used to drain you, you've set boundaries, clear boundaries, not mean, not aggressive, just clear. I can't help with that. That doesn't work for me. I need to focus on my priorities right now. And the ones who respect you stayed. The ones who didn't left. And you're okay with it because you're not people-pleasing anymore. You're purpose-pursuing. And there's a massive difference. Your energy is different now. You used to feel tired all the time, exhausted, burnt out. But now, even though you're waking up earlier, even though you're working harder on what matters, even though you're challenging yourself more than ever, you have more energy because you're not wasting it on things that don't matter. You're not giving it away to people who don't deserve it. You're not scattering it across 1,000 distractions. You're focusing it like a laser on what you're building. And focused energy is unlimited energy. Let me paint you a picture of what your life looks like now. It's 5 in the morning, and you're not dragging yourself out of bed anymore. You're opening your eyes with purpose. You know exactly what you're about to do because you planned it last night. You drink your water. You move your body. The movement that used to feel like torture now feels like freedom. Your muscles are stronger. Your mind is clearer. Your breath is deeper. You sit in silence, and your mind doesn't race anymore. It settles, it focuses, it generates ideas instead of anxieties. You journal, and the words flow easily now because you've been doing this every day. You know yourself. You understand your patterns. You recognize your triggers. You see your growth in black and white on those pages, where you were 3 months ago versus where you are now. The difference is staggering. And you did that. Nobody gave it to you. Nobody saved you. You saved yourself through daily discipline and relentless consistency. You read or learn something new and your brain absorbs it differently. Now, because you're not just consuming, you're integrating. You're asking how this applies to your specific goals, how you can use this information today, how this wisdom fits into what you're building. Everything has purpose now. Everything has intention. You plan your day, and you're not overwhelmed anymore because you're clear on your priorities. Crystal clear. You know, the one thing that absolutely must happen today, and everything else is either supporting that one thing or it's noise. And you've gotten really good at eliminating noise, at saying no, at protecting your time like it's the most valuable resource you have, because it is. You visualize success, and it doesn't feel fake anymore. It feels inevitable, because you've been proving to yourself every single day that you're capable of achieving what you set out to achieve. Your visualization isn't wishful thinking. It's mental rehearsal for what's actually coming. And then you go into your day, and people can feel it. The energy you bring into rooms, the way you handle pressure, the way you stay calm when everyone else is panicking, the way you make decisions quickly because you're clear on your values and your priorities, the way you communicate directly but kindly, the way you're fully present in conversations instead of halfway listening while thinking about the next thing. Your evenings are different too. You're not collapsing in exhaustion in front of Netflix anymore. You're intentionally winding down. You're analyzing your day, not to beat yourself up, but to learn, to adjust, to improve. And then you're making your 3 promises for tomorrow. Specific promises, achievable promises, non-negotiable promises. And you're going to bed knowing exactly what you need to do when you wake up. Your mind isn't racing because you've already processed the day. You've already planned tomorrow. There's nothing to stress about. Just sleep, deep, restorative, peaceful sleep. And this rhythm, this daily practice of waking with intention, moving with purpose, thinking with clarity, executing with discipline, analyzing with honesty, and resting with peace. This rhythm has become who you are, not what you do, who you are. It's not a routine anymore. It's your identity. You're not someone who's trying to be disciplined. You're someone who is disciplined. You're not someone who hopes to be unstoppable. You are unstoppable. Because unstoppable doesn't mean nothing stops you. It means when things try to stop you, when obstacles appear, when adversity hits, when people doubt you, when circumstances change, when plans fall apart, you don't stay stopped. You adapt, you adjust, you find another way. You keep moving, maybe slower, maybe in a different direction, but you keep moving because motion is life, stagnation is death, and you've chosen life. And here's where the transformation gets really profound. You start realizing that all those things you used to chase, all those external measures of success you thought would make you happy, the money, the status, the recognition, the approval, you don't need them the way you used to. Don't get me wrong, you still achieve them. Actually, you achieve them faster now because you're more focused, more disciplined, more strategic, but they don't define you anymore. They don't complete you because you found something more valuable than external success. You found internal peace. You found the unshakable knowing that regardless of what happens in the world around you, you have control over the world within you. You control your thoughts. You control your responses. You control your actions. You control your growth. And that control, that sovereignty over yourself, that's the real freedom everyone's chasing, but most people never find because they're looking for it in the wrong places. They're looking for freedom in having no responsibilities, but you found freedom in fulfilling your responsibilities to yourself. They're looking for freedom in doing whatever they want, whenever they want, but you found freedom in doing what you committed to do, especially when you don't want to do it. They're looking for freedom in external circumstances changing, but you found freedom in changing yourself to handle any circumstances, and now you're living with this quiet power that most people will never understand. You're not loud about it. You're not bragging about your discipline or your routine or your achievements. You're just consistently showing up, consistently executing, consistently growing. And the results speak for themselves. Your life is proof. Your transformation is evidence. Your unshakable presence is undeniable. People who knew you 6 months ago don't recognize you anymore. And I don't mean physically, though that might have changed too. I mean energetically, spiritually, the way you move through the world. You used to be reactive, scattered, anxious, unsure. Now you're responsive, focused, calm, certain. Same person, completely different energy. Because you didn't just change your habits, you changed your identity. And that project you've been working on every single day, it's taking shape. Real shape. The kind of shape that makes you realize this is actually happening. This thing that was just a dream 3 months ago, that felt impossible 6 months ago, that you whispered about in the darkness a year ago, It's real now. It exists. You built it. Brick by brick, promise by promise, morning by morning. But here's what nobody tells you about reaching goals. When you achieve something you've been working toward for months, something you've disciplined yourself for, something you've sacrificed for, something you've stayed consistent for, the achievement feels good. Yes, but what feels even better is knowing you're capable of that level of commitment, knowing you're someone who can set a target and hit it, knowing you're someone who says they're going to do something and then actually does it. That knowing is worth more than any trophy or title or bank account balance, because that knowing means you can do it again and again and again. There's no ceiling on what you're capable of anymore. There's no limit to what you can achieve. Not because you're special, not because you have some genetic advantage, but because you've developed the one skill that matters more than all other skills combined. The skill of showing up consistently even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. And now you're starting to see 3 months ahead, 6 months ahead, a year ahead. You're planning bigger, thinking bolder, dreaming larger, because you have the track record now to back up those dreams. You're not just hoping you can achieve them, you know you can achieve them because you've proven to yourself that you're someone who finishes what they start. Your morning visualizations are getting more vivid, more detailed, more ambitious. You're seeing yourself not just achieving the next goal, but the goal after that, and the goal after that. You're seeing the compounding effect of daily discipline over years, not just months, and it's breathtaking. The life you're building isn't just better than the life you had. It's beyond what you even thought was possible when you started this journey. And here's the thing about becoming unstoppable. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. It's consistent. It's steady. It's the willingness to show up on day 73 with the same commitment you had on day 1. It's the discipline to keep promises to yourself when nobody's watching and nobody would know if you quit. It's the wisdom to let your mind move faster than your mouth, even when you want to react. It's the courage to spend an hour in solitude with your thoughts instead of drowning them out with distractions. It's the honesty to analyze your failures and learn from them instead of making excuses. That's what unstoppable looks like, and you're living it now, every single day. Not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency always beats perfection, because perfection is impossible, but consistency compounds into something extraordinary. So now you're standing at this moment, 6 months in, maybe 8 months in, looking back at who you were and looking forward at who you're becoming. And the gap between those two people is so vast you can barely believe they're the same human being. And you realize something profound. The person you were 6 months ago, the one hitting snooze and breaking promises and living reactively and feeling stuck, that person is gone. Not because you destroyed them, but because you outgrew them. You became someone they could never imagine becoming. You developed capabilities they thought were impossible. You achieved things they thought were out of reach. And you did it through the most mundane, boring, unglamorous practice imaginable, showing up every single day and doing the work. And now you're starting to understand what the Stoics meant when they said adversity is the forge. Every morning you dragged yourself out of bed when you wanted to stay sleeping. Forge. Every time you sat in silence when your mind was racing. Forge. Every promise you kept when breaking it would have been easier. Forge. Every word you controlled when reacting would have felt better. Forge. Every day you analyzed when ignoring would have been more comfortable. Forge. All of it. Every single moment of discipline was the heat, and you didn't break, you became diamond. But here's where we need to talk about something critical, something that separates people who sustain transformation from people who achieve it temporarily and then lose it. You're entering the most dangerous phase of this entire journey, the phase where you've seen results, the phase where you feel unstoppable. The phase where your confidence is high and your discipline feels automatic and your life is working. This is the phase where most people relax. They think they've made it. They think the transformation is complete. They start sleeping in occasionally. They skip the morning routine here and there. They break a promise to themselves, just this once. They think they can coast on the momentum they've built. And that's exactly when everything they've built starts to crumble. Because here's the brutal truth about becoming unstoppable. That nobody wants to hear: you don't arrive. You don't reach a destination where you can finally relax and maintain on autopilot. Unstoppable isn't a place you get to. It's a practice you commit to every single day for the rest of your life. And I know what you're thinking. Forever? I have to do this forever? What's the point then? But that's the wrong question. The right question is, what's the alternative? Going back to who you were? Going back to broken promises and reactive living and scattered energy and wasted potential? Going back to waking up at 2 in the morning, wondering why your life isn't what you thought it would be? You've tasted what it feels like to be in control. You've experienced what it's like to trust yourself. You've seen what's possible when you show up consistently. You've felt the power of keeping your word, controlling your responses, thinking deeply, executing daily. And now that you know, you can't unknow it. You can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending that mediocrity is acceptable. So yes, you do it forever, but here's what changes. It stops being hard, not easy, but not hard like it was in week 1, when every morning felt like war. It becomes part of who you are. Your 5 a.m. wake up isn't something you force yourself to do anymore. It's just when you wake up. Your morning silence isn't a practice you dread. It's the peace you crave. Your 3 nightly promises aren't a burden. They're the foundation that holds your entire life together. And the life you're building, it's just getting started. Because everything you've achieved in the last 6 months, everything you've transformed, everything you've overcome, that was just a warm-up. That was just proving to yourself that you can do this. That was just building the foundation. Now comes the real building. Now comes the part where you use this unshakable discipline you've developed to create something extraordinary. Imagine where you'll be a year from now if you keep going. Not if you're perfect, but if you're consistent. If you keep those 3 promises to yourself every single night. If you wake up with intention every single morning. If you control your words, spend time in solitude, analyze your days and adjust your approach. If you keep showing up, keep learning, keep growing, keep executing, that business you've been thinking about started, running, profitable, that skill you've been wanting to mastered, that relationship you've been trying to repair, healed, that dream you've been carrying in silence, realized, not because of luck, not because of some magical breakthrough, but because of daily discipline compounded over time. That's the formula. That's always been the formula. And imagine where you'll be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. If you commit to this practice of becoming unstoppable, if you make it non-negotiable, if you protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. The gap between who you are now and who you'll become is so vast, you can't even comprehend it yet, but you will. You'll look back at this exact moment, at this exact message, and you'll realize this was when everything changed. This was when you stopped hoping for a better life and started building one. But all of this, every single word I've said, every practice I've shared, every truth I've spoken, it means absolutely nothing if you don't make a decision right now. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not after you finish this video and think about it for a while. Right now, this moment, this is your moment. The Stoics had this practice called memento mori. Remember, you will die. Not to be morbid, but to create urgency. To remind yourself that you don't have infinite time, that every day you waste is gone forever, that someday you'll take your last breath, and between now and then, you have a choice about what you do with the time you have left. So let me ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Even if nobody else hears this answer, when you're on your deathbed, when you're looking back at your life, what do you want to see? Do you want to see someone who kept hitting snooze and breaking promises and living reactively and letting fear and comfort and other people's opinions dictate their choices? Or do you want to see someone who said enough and meant it? Someone who became disciplined, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Someone who kept their word to themselves even when it hurt. Someone who built something extraordinary out of daily consistency. You get to choose right now. And here's the beautiful and terrifying thing about this choice. It's not a one-time decision. You're going to make this choice tomorrow morning when your alarm goes off at 5 and your bed is warm and your body is tired. You're going to make this choice tomorrow evening when you're exhausted and the last thing you want to do is analyze your day. You're going to make this choice every single day for the rest of your life. But it gets easier. Not because the practice changes, but because you change. Because every time you choose discipline over comfort, you're reinforcing who you are. You're proving to yourself that you're someone who keeps their word. You're building evidence of your own unstoppable nature. And that evidence compounds into unshakable confidence. So here's what I need you to do tonight. Before you go to sleep, I need you to make 3 promises to yourself. 3 specific things you will do tomorrow, no matter what. And I need you to understand that these aren't suggestions. These aren't goals. These are non-negotiable commitments to yourself. Your word to yourself. The foundation of everything you're about to build. Promise 1 might be, I will wake up at 5 a.m. Promise 2 might be, I will sit in silence for 10 minutes. Promise 3 might be, I will write in my journal. Your 3 promises will be specific to you, to your life, to what you're building. But they need to be specific. They need to be achievable. And they need to be non-negotiable. And then tomorrow, when you wake up, you keep them. Tired, keep them. Unmotivated, keep them. Busy, keep them. Stressed, keep them. Whatever excuse your mind generates, whatever reason you come up with for why today isn't a good day to start, you ignore it. And you keep your promises. Because those 3 promises are the difference between who you are now and who you're becoming. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to keep those promises tomorrow. And it's going to feel hard, maybe really hard. And then you're going to make 3 more promises tomorrow night. And you're going to keep those the next day. And it's going to feel slightly less hard. And then you're going to do it again, and again, and again. And somewhere around day 14, something is going to shift. You're going to wake up and realize you're not the same person who started this journey. You're stronger, more focused, more capable, more in control, and you're going to keep going. Day 30, day 60, day 90, and with each passing day, each kept promise, each moment of discipline, you're going to become more unstoppable. Not because nothing stops you, but because when things try to stop you, you adapt and keep moving. That's what unstoppable means. That's what you're becoming. But I need to be honest with you about something. Not everyone is going to do this. Most people watching this, hearing this, feeling this right now, they're going to nod along, feel inspired for a few minutes, maybe even make it to tomorrow morning. And then they're going to hit snooze. They're going to break their first promise to themselves. They're going to tell themselves they'll start Monday. And Monday will come, and they'll have another excuse. And a year from now, they'll be exactly where they are today, except now they'll be a year older, with 1 more year of regret. But you're not most people. If you were, you wouldn't have made it this far. You wouldn't have listened to this entire message. You wouldn't be feeling this fire inside you right now, this hunger for change, this knowing that you're meant for something more than what you've been settling for. You're different. You're someone who's been waiting for permission to become who you really are. You're someone who's been looking for a sign that it's time to stop playing small and start building big. You're someone who knows deep in your soul that you're capable of extraordinary things if you'll just commit to the daily discipline required to achieve them. This is your permission. This is your sign. This is your moment. And I'm not going to lie to you and say it's going to be easy. It won't be. There are going to be mornings when you want to quit. Days when nothing seems to be working, weeks when you feel like you're not making progress, moments when you question if this is worth it. And in those moments, you're going to have to dig deeper than you've ever dug before. You're going to have to remember why you started. You're going to have to look at your journal entries from week 1 and see how far you've come. You're going to have to trust the process, even when you can't see the results yet, because the results are coming. They're always coming. Consistency always wins. Discipline always compounds. Kept promises always build confidence. Daily action always creates transformation. It's not a question of if, it's only a question of how long you're willing to stay committed. And here's what I want you to understand about time. 6 months is going to pass, whether you commit to this practice or not. A year is going to pass. 5 years are going to pass. You can't stop time. You can't pause your life. Time is going to move forward, and you're going to move with it. The only question is, who will you be when that time has passed? Will you be someone who wished and hoped and dreamed? Or will you be someone who did and built and became? You already know the answer. You knew it before you started watching this. You've known it every time you've whispered promises to yourself at 2 in the morning. You've known it every time you felt that fire inside you, telling you that you're meant for more. You've known it every time you've looked at your life and felt that gap between who you are and who you could be. The only difference between now and then is this. Now you have the exact formula. Now you know what to do. 3 promises every night. Keep them every day. Control your words. Spend time in solitude. Analyze your days. Adjust your approach. Show up at 5 a.m. Move your body. Calm your mind. Feed your soul. Prepare for your day. Execute with intention. Build your life brick by brick, promise by promise, day by day. That's the formula. That's always been the formula. And it works. Not sometimes, always, for everyone who commits to it, who stays consistent with it, who protects it like their life depends on it. So let me ask you one final question. Are you ready to become unstoppable? And I don't mean, are you ready to try? I don't mean, are you ready to attempt it and see what happens? I mean, are you ready to commit, to make this non-negotiable, to show up every single day, regardless of how you feel, to keep your promises to yourself no matter what, to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes until you become the person you know you're meant to be? Because if the answer is yes, if you're truly ready, then there's nothing that can stop you. Not circumstances, not other people, not fear, not doubt, not past failures, not present obstacles, not future uncertainty, nothing, because you're not relying on perfect conditions anymore. You're not waiting for the right time. You're not hoping for motivation. You're creating your own conditions. You're making this the right time. You're generating your own motivation through kept promises and daily discipline. You are becoming the force. You are becoming the certainty. You are becoming unstoppable. And years from now, when someone asks you how you did it, how you transformed your life, how you achieved what seemed impossible, how you became the person you are, you'll think back to this moment, to this exact second, when you decided that enough was enough, when you stopped living as the person you were and started building the person you wanted to be, when you made the single most important commitment of your life.